I made almost $30 million selling information online, but here's how I would do it again: simpler, smarter, and with way fewer mistakes. The first thing I want to talk about is how I'm going to break down this video. And instead of doing it like, oh, this is what I would do from 0 to 10K, 10 to 20K, 20 to 50K, I feel like everybody does videos like that. I'm actually going to break this down into 6 different pillars. And if you can get these 6 pillars right when building information, coaching, consulting business, then I think the money is going to follow really, really easily. So the first one's going to be your personal pillar. Now, I'm going to try to timestamp this on the bottom. So if you're the kind of person that's like, oh my God, he's going to talk about personal life, let me just skip past it, then you can feel ahead and do that. But I will tell you that this is one of the first things that I wish I had done correctly from the beginning, instead of figuring it out after I'd already made $20 million and lost a lot of time and energy. So in your personal life, your personal pillar, whenever you're trying to build an information business, I think ultimately what you want to look at is the end goal. Okay. And this is something that I didn't think about a lot when I first got started. You see, when I first started, I was living in a really poor environment. I literally hated where I lived every single day. It was filled with dog poop and pee. I hated the people that I was around. I was in a lot of pain on a daily basis. And so I was legitimately just trying to do this to get out of the life that I was in. I was very pain fueled. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with it in the very beginning. But the problem is when you're coming from that state, you're very emotional, you're very reactive. You're literally like, let me just do anything I can to make some money to get into a better situation. Well, what I know now is that I would rather actually take some time in the very beginning and do the thing that nobody does, and it's going to feel like you're wasting time. That is to figure out, what does the end goal look like? What are you going for here? Because once you have the end goal in mind, it actually makes everything way easier. And it also makes it way easier to say no to a lot of things. Kind of that woman in the red dress situation that Alex Ramosi talks about, where it's like, oh, and I'll give you a really great example here. Right now, I have my company, Scaling with Systems, and then I have a portfolio of companies that I work with in the information coaching consulting space. And I just love, I built this life, I built this business around my life. Actually, our mission statement inside of our company is, we want to help you build a business that serves you instead of you serving it. And these are all things that I realized after I made a lot of money online, what was the real point of it all. And so I was recently presented with an opportunity to become a co-founder in a software business. And this actually a business that helped come up with the idea for. And the goal was to scale it to maybe 100, $200 million within 3 to 5 years and try to make an exit. And I know that's obviously everybody's goals. And I know the chance of that succeeding is obviously very low, but these are with another founder who's also built multiple 8-figure businesses. And I feel like it's a huge opportunity. And I feel like it's a very high chance of success. But because I sat down actually not too long ago, about 15 months ago at this point, and I figured out what I actually wanted out of my life, what I wanted my day-to-day life to look like, I actually decided to turn down that opportunity. And instead, I counter-offered with an advisory role for a way smaller percentage of equity inside the company. Because I realized that for me to start that company, I would have to spend so much time, energy, and effort. I would have to be doing all these things that I know that I don't love doing. And because it's a startup, I would be harder to hire people, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was able to say potentially no to a multiple 8-figure payday. These are all big assumptions. I just want to kind of show you my thought process here. I say no to a multiple 8-figure payday because I know exactly what I want my life to look like, which, by the way, I'm really close to that right now. I live in a beautiful house in a beautiful island that's private in Miami Beach. I'm looking at my boat right here that I take out 3 to 4 times a week, that I captain myself. I take out friends and family on it all the time. We go out to eat dinner multiple times a week. I work only, let's say, 10 to 15 hours a week, doing highly leveraged things. I just work on product and content. I have an incredible relationship with my fiance, who I'm marrying soon. We have a puppy. We're talking about kids. We just bought our second home in our hometown where our family is. So like, this is all happening very, very quickly, where this kind of dream life has kind of almost been thrust upon me. But it was because about 15 months ago, I decided, okay, at this point, I've reached a certain net worth that technically, assuming an 8% return rate, I could never have to work again, and all of my expenses would be covered. Obviously, if I didn't start buying $50 million mansions or yachts or something like that. Everything could be covered. And so when you reach that level, you start to go, well, if I don't necessarily need more money at this point to be able to have a pretty high burn rate on a month-to-month basis, what should I be focusing or spending my time doing? And that kind of was a really sobering activity for me. And that was where I first came up with the concept of life manifesto. And that is one of the first things I recommend everybody doing here is sitting down and spending some time writing out a life manifesto. And this is actually something that I read every single day. And I talk about who I am, how I spend my time, who I spend my time with. I talk about what kind of businesses I have, what do I do inside those businesses. I talk about the toys that I own, the boat, the car, the house, blah, blah, blah. I talk about what kind of person that I am. I talk about my relationships with my family and my friends, my wife, my kids, my dog, all of this stuff. And I kind of wrote this out. And the funny part about that was when I wrote it out 15, 16 months ago, I realized that to have everything that I could think of at that time that would truly bring me happiness, not what other people told me what happiness was, but what I really, really knew internally. I love these things. Like I love trips. I love going on big trips with my friends. I love spending time with other people. Like things that I absolutely adored, regardless of what other people thought. I realized I could do all of it for $90,000 a month. $90,000 a month. Now I know there are a lot of people watching this. That's, oh my God, Ravi, you're going to live a $90,000 a month lifestyle. I get it. But when after you've made a certain amount of money, I was like thinking I had to be a billionaire. I was like, oh, well, I can't start enjoying this lifestyle until I make $1 billion or until I have $100 million net worth. But then when I started with the end goal in mind and I wrote everything out and I was ChatGPTing and I was Googling and cross-referencing, okay, how much would Pardo 38 yacht be that I could drive myself? How much would a house on a private island in Miami Beach be on a month? Blah, blah, blah. And I would write it all out. I was like, oh my God, it's 90 grand a month. I could literally start doing that today. And that's what happened. In November of 2023, I wrote that life manifesto out, and then within 15 months, 80% of it came true. I got the house, I got the boat, I proposed to my fiance, we got a dog, I bought a second house. We do multiple trips a year with our friends and family. We spend thousands of dollars a month on eating out. And I hope that I'm not losing you by saying like all this stuff. I'm really not trying to brag. I'm trying to say that I could have done all of that stuff a year and a half, 2 years ago already when I'd made, let's say, $10 million, but I was still waiting for some kind of future state because I'd never actually sat down and figured out what do I want my day-to-day life to look like. And I'm gonna tie this point home with a final story. So I'm not gonna say who, but somebody that I'm very close with. It's a younger guy. He's 21 years old, and he's kind of trying to figure out what he wants to do with life. And he's like, oh man, so he lives in this really beautiful part of the United States, and he wakes up in the morning, he does what he wants to do. He can surf, he can spend time on the beach, he spend time with his family members. We hang out together, blah blah blah. And so he's like, man, I really want pain and discomfort in my life. I really want to like experience all this hardship so that I could then have the motivation to go out and build this business so I could then start making my own money so that I could then really live my dream life. And I was like, look, I totally get it. Everybody can do whatever you want to do. But I said, have you ever sat down and actually thought about what would be different in your life if you had all that pain and all that hardship and you sacrificed 2, 3, 4, 5 years? What would be like, what would you do differently there? And it was kind of a sobering thought. He was like, honestly, I don't think I would do like maybe I would have this car in addition, and maybe I would like go on a couple of more trips a year or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, you don't need to make $10 million a year to do that. So you can make a couple of $1,000s a month to be able to do a lot of that stuff. And there's a really famous saying, which is, this investment banker goes to Mexico, this small fishing village in Mexico, and he talks to a fisherman there. He goes out on the fish, and then he says, "Oh, how many fish do you catch every single day?" And the Mexican fisherman says, "Oh, I get just a couple to feed my family, and maybe a couple more to sell, make a little bit of money." And he said, "Well, what do you do with all that extra time in the day?" And he says, "Oh, well, I eat lunch, take naps." I salsa dance with my wife, I drink wine, and I sleep as much as possible. And the guy's like, "Oh, you're doing it wrong." This investment banker's like, "You're doing it totally wrong. What you should do is you should then spend more time fishing. You should then take that money that you're getting from the fish. You should then buy additional boats. Eventually, you can turn it into where you have a whole fleet of boats. Then you can list it on the Nasdaq or the S&P 500, and you can sell the entire company for 50, $100 million within 10 to 15 years if you really worked hard enough." And then he said, "Okay, senor, but what would I do at that point?" The Mexican fisherman asked. And the investment banker said, "Well, You probably retire to some small fishing village, spend a couple hours fishing every single day, and then spend the rest of the day drinking wine, dancing with your wife, and sleeping in, right? And so the joke there is that you're going to work all this time and energy and sacrifice 10 years of your life just to get to exactly where you are right now. So I'll wrap that all up with saying that I think that more people should spend more time thinking about the end of what they want their life to like. What does your day-to-day look like? And that will help determine what kind of business that you have. There's a big trend going on in this high-ticket coaching consulting agency course creator space where a lot of people are not necessarily chasing the top line revenue number. I'm not even doing it anymore either. Instead of like, oh, let me aggressively try to hit $2 million a month and $3 million a month at any sacrifice possible. I'm just like, okay, how do I make a business that I love to do? I can work with really, really great people. It barely requires any energy or effort from me. It's kind of going along on its own. It can employ the people that I want to employ and take care of. And I can make enough money to live the life that I want to live. That's kind of what I've adjusted my life to. Once again, building a business that serves me instead of me serving it. And so now if I showed you my calendar right now, man, I literally have, I think, 4 hours of meetings every single week at this point, where I used to have, 20 to 30 hours of meetings every single week. Because I'm just every week, every month, I'm figuring out what do I not want, what doesn't give me energy, and what can I focus on in order to live really what I consider my dream life. So step number one on the personal side is just start with the end goal. Sit down on your own and say, what do I want my day-to-day life to look like? How much money do I need to make in order to do that? And then what kind of business would I need to run in order to make that kind of money in order to live that certain life? Hey guys, really quickly, Future Ravi here. If you want my help or my team's help scaling your business, installing these same playbooks plus dozens more inside your company so that you can hit that next revenue goal, your next profit goal with as little work as possible, with as little guesswork as possible, make sure you go down below and book a call to speak with our team today. Okay, let's pivot now to the second step here, which is going to be the second pillar, which is going to be your offer. Okay, now when it comes to offers, there's a few things that I wish that I knew from the very beginning that I'm going to tell you right now. So the first one is that I would make sure that the problem is incredibly painful. So unbelievably painful to the point that these people are literally like searching every single day. How do I solve this? The point that people are staying awake at night because that problem is not being solved. I see too many people creating problems that are just like, they're like kind of nice to have. So it's like, oh, this would be cool if I got this fixed in my life, but it's not the biggest problem in the world, right? Where you want to really be creating business around incredibly painful problems. And the second thing was I wouldn't want to educate them. Okay. There's a lot of people that I work with or that I know where they're like, oh, Ravi, but people don't know about this. And that's why it's not painful. And I'm like, well, guess what? If you have to educate them, that's going to take a lot of time, money, efforts, energy. And so it's going to be a harder business to run. So instead of trying to educate them on something, I'd rather get something that they already are experiencing a lot of pain on and they're already educated on. An example of education would be like, let's say like a life coach, right? It's like, okay, my life is not as good as I want it to be. And so they're saying the problem is you don't have a life coach. And so now I need to sell that person on, oh, the problem is not that that you're not working hard enough or you have a bad business model, blah, blah, blah. It's a mindset problem or it's a life coach problem. So now I have to educate them and tell them all this stuff. And they're still maybe not even going to believe me at the end of it. And if they do believe me, who's to say they're going to work with me versus one of the other 10 million life coaches that are out there, right? Versus like for my business, Scaling with Systems, we help other companies scale. I don't need to tell people, oh, you really should scale your business. Everybody wants to scale their business, right? Mostly. And I don't need to tell people, oh, like, are you feeling any pain because you're not making enough money? That's one of the biggest pain points everybody has, right? Another great offer is obviously in the relationship space, people that need wives or they are having a hard time finding a partner or not being able to sleep with women or men that they want to sleep with, right? Those are all really big pains. Like think about how much when you're in high school or whatever else it is, how much you're obsessing over that one girl. And if you could actually get that girl, right? It's so funny. I used to think about how much that mattered to me back then, right? But that was like a real pain point. So focus on creating stuff that are incredibly painful and that you don't have to explain to people why you're going to help them solve it. They kind of innately understand it as it is. The other thing that I would do, this is actually from Naval Ravikant's, is do something that looks like work to other people, but is play to you. So a great example is in my own experience here. In my company, Scaling Systems, I absolutely love scaling other people's businesses. When I go and take people out on my boat, or I go to dinner with my fiance's parents, my future mother and father-in-law, they're always like, "Oh, like, are you okay to talk about like scaling businesses and stuff like that? Can I ask your help?" I had somebody on my boat on Saturdays. He's like, I can pay you for your time. Is it okay? I'm like, dude, I literally would talk about scaling businesses every single day, all day, even if nobody paid me. And that's why I have a YouTube channel, right? Because I can now do it even more. It's like I could talk to this camera and I can tell you guys. And so I literally absolutely love scaling businesses. I love identifying constraints. I love solving them. I love building systems around it. I'm the biggest nerd in the world when it comes to automation and systems. Like, we're building this new house. I just bought this new house and I'm building in all these like systems for the lights and for the walkway and for the water and the boat and all the like, hours and hours I'm spending every single day on things that don't matter to a lot of people, but I just love the journey. I just built a chat GPT, a my GPT, where I took all the clothes I have in my closet, all these photos I have of these clothes, and now I can just say, hey, what should I wear to dinner tonight? Or I say, hey, I'm going to, I don't know, the Bahamas for 4 days. What should I pack? And it'll create everything for me. I can just give it to my assistant and she packs it for me now, right? Those are, you need that, maybe not, but I just love doing those things where other people, they would pay me for any of those things, right? And so this is from Naval Ravikant. I won't take credit for it, but he says, find things that look like work to other people that are play for you. And I think that that is a way better verbiage than what a lot of people say, which is follow your passion. I hate that. I hate follow your passion for two main reasons. Number one, a lot of people that are at the stage of like, oh, I don't know what to do with my life. You're typically in the beginning stages of your career or your entrepreneurial journey. And so you haven't experienced enough of life in order for you to figure out what your passion is. Like, my first business, I was running ads for real estate agents. That was not something that I was passionate about. But from that business, I figured out that I really love just scaling businesses, which is why I found the thing that I was actually passionate about, right? So I hate it because most people are not in the right phase of life where they even know what they're passionate about. The second thing is, just because you're passionate about it doesn't mean that other people are going to pay for it, right? So the reason why Naval Ravikant does so well is because something that's playful for you, meaning you enjoy it, versus work for others. Well, people would consider it work if they would ascribe some kind of money or monetary value to it. So, like, let's say, for example, my house manager, she loves cleaning houses. So, like, she actually has told me this before, and she does such like care. She like has a little label maker, and she like labels my where my clothes go, the different type of clothes that go there. Like, I didn't ask her to do that. She just like loves to organize stuff like that. Right. So, like, to her, that seems like play. But to me, I would be like, oh, I'm just trying to figure out how much can I pay somebody an hour to do that stuff for me. So find stuff looks like that feels like play to you and looks like work to others. The final two parts about the offer. The first one is that I would either create something mid tickets and go incredibly wide, or I would create something incredibly high tickets and make it a little bit more narrow. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you two examples. I have a portfolio company and they offer a very niche service and they charge $30,000 for that service. And we only sell to people that are at a certain revenue level, like, or wealth level, let's just say, like over $10 million. And so there's a very small percentage, that's actually 0.4% of people that fall in that category. But when we do get those people on the phone, they are wiring in $30,000 every single day like clockwork. They're not asking for guarantees. They're not fighting us on anything. They're not, oh, is this going to be worth the investment? No objections. 30 grand, 30 grand, 30 grand, 30 grand. So first month we launched that business, we did 10 sales. It was actually only 15 days. It wasn't even a full 30 days. And we did $300,000 in sales in that business, right? So that's a very high ticket offer to a very narrow audience. The second option is I would do something mid ticket to a wide audience. So I would sell something $2,000 to $4,000, but I would do it to as many people as humanly possible, right? So a great example of this would be something like Shelby Sapp. If you don't know who she is, she sells like she teaches women how to be salespeople. So she teaches the everyday person how to become an online closer. So she sells it for $3,000. She does it on a live webinar, and they make millions of dollars every webinar that they do. So she's selling something mid-ticket, so a couple $1,000s, to a very, very wide audience, all the female bad girlies that are out there that want to make a lot of money, right? So that's what I would try to avoid is low tickets by any means necessary. I would never do anything low ticket, and low ticket's like $7 to $97. And I would try to avoid doing the middle of the market, right? Because this is where everyone's kind of competing in, right? It's not the high end part of the market, it's not the low end part of the market that you can set at scale. They're all going for this medium chunk here, which causes more problems than I won't get into here. The fifth thing that I'll talk about here is outcomes over deliverables. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Deliverable. It means that in the very beginning, when I first launched my company, I was like, okay, in order to justify what was first $1,500 a month and then was $2,500 a month, I needed to do everything for them. So I would get on the pitch and I would say, okay, I'm going to run your Facebook ads. I'm going to create social media content for you. I'm going to create you a custom 60-day email sequence. I'm going to edit your website. I'm going to create for you a sales funnel. I'm going to call your leads for you. I'm going to do you sales coaching. I'm going to script for you, blah, 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 right? And the problem was that first of all, I was literally drowning in work every single time I onboarded a client. It was like 60 hours of work to get them onboarded. And second of all, I was almost diluting the power of the 1 to 2 things that were actually delivering the results that my clients wanted by offering them 20 different things, right? So they felt more overwhelmed, even if it was all done for you. They felt more overwhelmed and like they weren't going to make sure they got all those things. And so I was kind of losing sales. So when I went from, hey, I'm going to do all these things for you, to I'm going to get you this one outcome, and here are the 3 things I'm going to do to get there. I'm going to help you run the Facebook ads. I'm going to create a ISA team to call those leads for you. And then I'm going to help you coach you through how to turn those leads into closings for your business. It took us from like a couple $1,000s a month to over $100,000 a month, right? So I would always focus on outcomes over the deliverable. And a bonus one on the offer in the very beginning is don't be picky. Meaning, I have a friend of mine that was trying to start this in the online business world, and they were like, "Oh, I bought this course on how to do an agency, so I'm only going to do agencies and only for this specific niche." And so they did like 6 months. They didn't get any clients with it. And then they pivoted a little bit. They're like, you know what? I was like, dude, just try to get some money. That's all you need right now. You can do anything for anybody. So then he started reaching out to his local market, and he got like a website design client and a few other people as well. And they weren't in that one niche, but you're starting to get clients that you can then figure out what you actually like to do. You can start to get results. Then you can go back to that niche if you want to, but don't be so picky in the very beginning. Like, oh, Ravi said that real estate agents were good people to go after, so I can only do real estate agents, only make this one offer. If you're just starting out, don't be so picky. You go either mid ticket and wide, high ticket or narrow. Find something that feels like play to you. It's incredibly painful. You don't have to educate them. And then there's thousands of things that fall in that category. And then just start hustling and bustling until you get some clients coming in. And then you can figure out what your next steps are going to be. Okay, let's keep it going next with marketing. Here are a few things that I wish that I knew starting from scratch, what I would adjust in marketing. So first and foremost is I would build an audience. I built my first 2 companies purely on paid advertising. It wasn't until my paid advertising account got shut down for my company I have right now, Scalable Systems, that I even started making YouTube videos, which now account for about 50% of our revenue. I now see whenever I work with a client, even in my portfolio companies, I only work with creators, people that already have an audience that want to try to create a little bit more of a high ticket product or service, like they're selling stuff for $7 or $14, and they want to figure out how do I make it into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month with as little work as possible. And I'm like, great, well, you already have the audience, which in my opinion is the hardest thing. Let's now just create this marketing and sales system and fulfillment that gets you what you're looking for here. So from day one, I would start building an audience, whether that's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, a newsletter, emails. I don't really care. I'm not going to get too deep inside of it. But every single day, I would do something to build an audience. And if you're looking at this right now and you're like, oh, I'm not good on camera, blah, blah, blah. I start from zero. Everybody starts from zero. Everybody sucks on camera. Go back on my original YouTube channel and look at my first videos in there, and it is hilarious how terrible I am at talking to a camera. It's actually comical. Okay, so the first thing I would definitely do is start to focus on building an audience of people that know, like, and trust me, and hopefully are somewhat related to the offer that I have or that I am going to create. Inside of build an audience, I would typically choose one long form platform. So for me, this is always going to be YouTube. I have dozens of videos on my other channel about why I think YouTube is the best platform out there, but I would do YouTube. And there's only a couple of long form platforms. Like, it's either going to be a newsletter, or YouTube, or it's going to be like a podcast. The benefit of YouTube is it can bring in people on its own. A newsletter, you have to drive email subscribers from somewhere else, and a podcast, it has almost no discoverability. So YouTube gets you that exposure you need to really build trust with people at scale and build that what's called parasocial relationship, where they feel like they really know you, even though you've never met them before. You need a lot of really long form content for that. So YouTube's the best for that. And then I would create a short form platform as well, which is going to be really good for growth. And for me, that's going to be Instagram. I think the Instagram YouTube combo is super, super huge. Instagram will give you velocity. It allows you to have conversations with people that watch your stuff on YouTube and turn those people into sales. And it can be a little bit more raw and authentic. Instead of like you doing super published videos, it can be just you talking to the camera and uploading it online. The second thing that I would do in my marketing, I wish I did way sooner, was I would create what we call one pager. But essentially what it is I would start from the very beginning and I would say, okay, who exactly is my audience? Who am I speaking to? What exactly are their pain points? What am I going to do for them? And how does all my content kind of play together? Because what happens is it's like what I talked about at the very beginning, where you're trying to choose, where you're sitting at the very beginning, you're figuring out what you want out of this life, out of this business, et cetera, et cetera. You should do that in the very beginning of the audience, the offer, the content, the marketing system, et cetera, et cetera. Because what happens is a lot of people, they have a lot of hodgepodge messaging. Like they create a YouTube video about why, like, why they're a motivational speaker. And then they have another YouTube video about how to, I don't know, do this tactical thing over here. And then they have the Instagram thing about talking about their dog. And then they have an offer over here. And they have an offer over here. And so they're attracting all these different people with all these different audiences, with all these different pain points, with all these different services. And they end up working 2-3 times harder for even less money than the person that's like, okay, I'm only making content for these people. I don't care how many views that it gets. And this is the main offer. And everything that people see from top of funnel, which would be like, your website, your social media content, your ads, et cetera, to the middle of funnel, which would be like your sales funnels, your email sequences, et cetera, to the bottom of funnel, like your actual sales calls themselves, are all saying the exact same thing, hitting the same pain points, blah, blah, blah. If you have that and you're able to create that from the very beginning, it makes your marketing so much better. Because what a lot of people do is they have a 1% conversion from top of funnel to the middle of funnel, and then let's say, I don't know, a 5% conversion from middle of funnel to bottom of funnel. If you're able to have consistent messaging, so you're attracting the right people top of funnel, they're seeing the same messaging through the rest of the funnel, this could go to 3% and this could go to 15%, right? Because you have cohesive messaging from beginning to the end. So without doing any more work, you're tripling your business potentially, right? And I'm kind of just throwing around numbers here, but this is true. I see this happen all the time. So I would definitely start at the very beginning, figuring out what am I creating content about, who is it for, and then work essentially forwards to backwards there to create the video sales letter, the webinar, the sales scripts, the actual offer itself based on who I'm going to create this content around. The third thing I would do in marketing is I would probably say no to funnels in the very beginning. Definitely can be helpful if you have somebody's help building them. But man, I see a lot of people not starting an info business or really scaling it because they think they need to have the perfect funnel. I can't tell you how many clients that we help get the first few clients just from literally hopping on sales calls. Where they just create a calendar. You can use Go High Level or Calendly. You get people on a call, you pitch them on the services, and you sell them. Even that company that I talked about, that's a portfolio company, we hit $300,000 the first 15 days. That was without a video sales letter for the vast majority of that. We are literally just doing Instagram call outs to the DMs, get on the call and pitch them, right? But because there was so much trust in the audience, and because the content messaging was very consistent from the content itself to the actual sales call scripts, we were closing deals without having this fancy funnel that we needed in there. Now, funnels are very helpful, and they can definitely help you systemize and scale so that you're not saying the same thing over and over again. They can also help you pre-handle objections on sales calls, but I would not say that it's the absolute thing that you need to get done from the day one in order to start making money. I think that's an excuse a lot of people make. The fourth part about marketing that I would focus on that I wish that I did way sooner was that I would use AI, but more specifically, I would use AI feedback almost every single day. So in AI feedback, I'm talking about the most important and valuable thing that you could ever have in your entire business is sales call recordings, because these are people that are getting on a call with the intent to potentially purchase from you. And so you need to be able to listen as much as possible from that call. And how do you figure out, that's one of the biggest leverage points, how do I get more of those people to say yes, right? And so the nice thing about AI is not only can you use AI to coach your sales team or yourself on how you can get better, you can use AI to create a sales script, which I've done for multiple clients and multiple offers, that hits all the pain points that we know that they have based on what the sales calls are. It pre-handles objections. it gets what's known as a tie down. So if, at the end of every single call, everybody says the exact same thing of why they can't move forward, you can create a tie down earlier on in that sales script where you can get them to admit that, oh, they would move forward even if they didn't have that or something along those lines. So that later on, when they brought that up again, you can say, oh, remember earlier on when you said that you'd move forward without that, right? So you can create that through AI without being a sales master. Another great example of AI feedback is taking all of the sales calls that people are talking to you, all the pain points, desires, blah, 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 and turning it into a video sales letter, or taking all this pain points, desire, blah, and turning it into an unlimited amount of content for you for your content machine, right? And it's all going to be that one pager. It's all going to follow that same pain point and desires. And so it's just this never ending cycle where you create the content that you know is going to attract the right people. They're going to watch your video sales letter or your webinar, or whatever else it is, to get pre-sold. They're going to get in the sales call. They're going to either buy or not buy. And then you're going to go and say, okay, now how do I create a better sales, take that sales call recording? How do I create a better sales script? How do I optimize the sales script I have? How do I create a better video sales letter? So I should have closed this deal. And then how do I create more content to get more people like this top of funnel? And it's just this never ending feedback loop that you can just continuously feed. And if you start small and you're taking one call every 3 days or one call every 5 days, you can start snowballing that to the point that you have an unlimited amount of content. You have a video sales letter that speaks directly to that person and their pain points. It gets a lot of them to book, and you have a super high close rate because you don't have a lot of objections because you're creating a sales script that handles all those objections before they even come up. I can keep on going on marketing, but I'm going to kick it forward to sales real quick. So what would I do on sales, and what would I do differently? So first and foremost, what I would do is I would try to outsource sales as quickly as possible. I think a lot of people are afraid to outsource sales, but in all reality, in my dream life, what I did in the first step here is I'm not taking sales calls all day. So I would rather pay somebody 8%, 9%, 10% and have them take the sales calls for me. So I didn't have to take any of the sales calls, so I could get back 6, 7, 8 hours every single day, or even 10 hours every single week. And a lot of first time founders are not really great at sales anyway, so it's not a bad idea to outsource it. Now, a lot of people say, oh, shouldn't you do the sales first before you outsource it? It's not a bad idea. So you can have KPIs and metrics and things to tell a salesperson this is what you could expect. But also, if you're just absolutely horrendous at sales, if you can just explain to a salesperson in an interview, look, I'm really bad at this, but I'm getting really quality people. They're getting on the call. I'm just not being able to set the frame correctly, blah, blah, blah. Then you might still be able to hire a good salesperson and pull yourself out of it as quickly as possible. So I think people stay stuck in sales way too long, and I would outsource it as quickly as possible. The second thing is I would focus a lot on framing. So I talked about this in one of my previous videos, but framing is if you're getting on sales calls and the prospect has no idea who you are, if they barely know anything about you, if they're comparing you to 10 other people, if you're coming to them and you're begging for them to work with you, which you typically get from cold calling and cold DMs and stuff like that, it's going to be very hard to close that deal, or you're going to have to do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one call or sales call process. But you could get the frame down in the beginning where you have inbound people coming to you either from content or ads. If you're hitting all their pain points and desires and you're filtering out the unqualified people. So whenever people do make it to the booking page or after they book a call, you say, congratulations, you qualify for this call. So now they're like, oh, wow, I qualify to be able to speak with you. Great. And then on the sales call, you go even deeper into discovery and pre-qualification process to make sure that they're a really good fit. Well, now these people are pretty much foaming at the mouth to work with you because not everybody can work with you. And so it's easier for you to ask painful questions and to drop high price points and for them to be willing to pay it because they're coming to you. You didn't come to them, right? So I would have saved myself so much of a headache when I first started my first company if I understood framing, because the very first company that I offered was that advertising agency. And what we did was we would send 2,000, 3,000 cold emails every single day to real estate agents in the United States. We'd say, hey, we have a referral for you. If you're interested, just call me back here. They would call that number. I would pick up and I would say, hey, we're generating a lot of leads for an agent in that area, but we're getting more leads than they can handle. So we need another agent to give it to. Would you be willing to get on a call and talk about what that would look like? So I would pivot them from thinking they're going to get a referral into them buying a $1,500 to $2,500 a month service from that sales call. That is a very difficult frame to do. And that was a super hard uphill battle every single time. I got cursed out, blah, blah, but I was making sales from it. And because I thought that all business had to be hard, because that's what a lot of people promote online, I thought, well, this is just the way it is. But now that I'm like, I run ads and I create content, I have YouTube videos, it's like people come on a call, like, yeah, I've been following you for 6 months. I've watched like 40 of your YouTube videos. I'll pay in full today, right? It's like, I'm like, why would I do anything other than just create this content, which I love to do, and get on calls with people that are already pre-sold? So I would focus on framing as much as humanly possible. The third thing that I wish I added to my sales process way sooner is something that we call red zone requests. And this is really applicable when it comes from you're getting a lot of sales calls from your content. But like I said, you're going to probably outsource yourself from sales as quickly as possible. But the problem is people are going to be getting on these calls because of the content and maybe to work with you one-on-one. And so there's a little bit of a gap if you think about it, where it's like, let's say you, and then there is this gap of the salesperson, and then there's you again right here. And so this is where a lot of sales are lost because they want to, they see you in the content, they want to work with you, and here's this annoying salesperson that's in between there that's is messing up the flow of things. And so what we do with red zone requests is if somebody is, it's called a red zone because if you don't watch American football, it's essentially like when I think you're in the 10-yard zone or the 20-yard zone, you're in the red zone before you go do a touchdown. I don't watch a lot of sports. So in a red zone request, what happens is if somebody's really close to closing, but they didn't close for one of whatever reasons, my team will fill out a form that will let me know, hey, this person was going to close, but didn't close for this reason here. They're really close. I would create a video and maybe you can touch on these points. And I'll shoot a quick Loom video. I just did 3 of them. I'll send those out. And we have a 90% close rate for those red zone requests after I send those videos. So it's a very low leverage point in my time. I make the videos 2 to 5 minutes long. I send those out. I batch them all together. So let's say it's 15 minutes. We close 3 people at, let's say, 15 grand total for some of our higher packages. That's $45,000 I made from 15 minutes of work that we might not have made otherwise, right? So the red zone requests are super, super critical. The other big elements of this, which I'm actually going to talk about when we get into delivery, is transfer of trust. And this is going back to the sales teams. I would make sure that in some way I have content like a video or something like that, where before they get on a sales call with my sales team, I'm introducing who the salesperson is, what their experience is, what their background is, and I'm really hyping them up. I'm doing what's known as edification. So this is where I am saying, hey, this salesperson is amazing. They're even more talented than I am. You should trust them. You should listen to them. You should maybe buy from them. And I'm like throwing this person up on this pedestal. And because the prospect really likes and respects me, whenever I say the salesperson's really good, now I'm transferring some of this trust over to the salesperson. And now they have a way higher likelihood of responding back to messages, showing up for the sales call, and even closing. The final piece I'll give you on sales here is what I call an OTO playbook. Okay. And this is really, really powerful. These are all ways that you can literally take your close rate from 10% all the way up to 50% plus over, let's say, a 6-month window, right? So an OTO playbook is it's a one-time offer playbook. And essentially what it means is that if you have somebody and they're super close to closing, but they're not closing for this specific reason. They've been burned in the past. They don't have enough time. They wanted more access to you, whatever the reasons are. Well, you can then give your salespeople a list of 3 to 5 things that they can offer to sweeten the deal in order to get that person to close, only if they close and maybe pay in full that day. So let me give a few examples. So let's say that they don't have enough time right now. Well, what you could do is you can say, hey, you can extend the length of the program by 1 month. Let's say that they don't have, they wanted more access to the founder, you. Well, let's say that you'd be willing to offer them a one-on-one call if they said yes today. Let's say that they have been burned in the past. Let's say you offer them a totally unconditional 30-day money back guarantee, so that they can close, and you know that you're going to get the results that they actually want to get. So the idea behind this is that your sales team essentially has like a bag of tricks that whenever they're on the call and they're so close to the close, but this person has a reason they're not closing, an objection, and maybe it's a legitimate objection, well, then you can have them actually pull out one of these things to get them across the line. The only caveat to this is, first of all, you don't want to do it all the time. Second of all, you want to do it only for people that are seriously interested. You've actually identified what the real objection is, and they're going to do something for you. Meaning, they're going to either pay right away. So, hey, I'm going to make you this offer, but you have to say yes in this call, or they're going to maybe pay in full instead of doing a payment plan. So that way, it's like a give and take. Because if you just say, hey, we're going to give you all these things, and that's just included in the offer, it may seem like that's a really good offer, but now everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants a bargain. Now you've pretty much blown your load, for lack of a better term, and you have nothing else that you can offer them other than giving them your kidney. I don't know if this is where the kidney is, but you get the idea. So instead, you can say, hey, this is the offer, and that's a really great offer. And then you can maybe pull out one or two of these things. And then in exchange for getting those things, they move forward today or they pay in full. And that way it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, guys, so truthfully, I was going to try to get to all 6 pillars in one video, but I actually have a meeting in 1 minute I have to take right now with a client. So I'm going to have to wrap this video up here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a part 2 where I go over the things that I would do different in the delivery part of the business and the operations part of the business. And then I'm going to give you some bonus stuff at the end of that one. So make sure to keep your eye out for that video if it hasn't come out already. And if you want my help installing these playbooks, plus many more I didn't cover in this video inside your business, either start or scale your coaching, consulting, agency, or online service-based business, make sure you go down below and book a call to speak with me or one of our team members.